All right, guys. So 4th gen lines to 3rd gen feed line. This is the T block that comes with the 4th gen, so it's all 4th gen lines. So following it, this is your stock 3rd gen feed 3/8 line. This actually threads into the 4th gen T block. So that just worked right out of the box, which is really cool because with this car, with the LS swap, it's all stock lines. So I really like that, and it's very affordable. You could just find a 4th gen and take the lines from the T block, and you can even use the 4th gen filter and have the lines. This turns into a plastic line down here. So, and then obviously it goes, this is your return line coming off your T block. So this eliminates the need for the Corvette filter, the C5 filter, because you have the return that goes to the 4th gen tank. So this is metal, but it turns into that nylon or the plastic hose, which I showed you up there with the EFI connectors. So I really like this setup. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart. All right, guys, so we got that fuel line out, and as you can see, that's exactly, it all came out as one piece. Again, right there on the end is where the third gen line just goes right into the 4th gen stuff. Let's see here, that turns into the plastic line, and then these go and just, it's an EFI quick connect to the pump bucket. So what I want to do with the new PTFE setup, because I had to convert all my lines, and I'm using 8 AN for the feed line and a 6 AN for the return. So that's the way that one's going to work. Then I'll have quick disconnects for the adapters. So here is the EFI quick disconnects with the adapters. So we'll be using that with a PTFE hose end. And then this is an 8 AN PTF hose. And that's what we're running for the new setup. Then at the rail, using your stock 3rd gen right at the engine here. You just want to get this millimeter to 6AN adapter here, and this is going to go on your hard line in your engine bay. And then I did run the only custom thing I did when I did my LS swap was just a this to a 6AN braided line with a quick disconnect going to the rail. And you can see here, this is the quick disconnect going to the rail. And on the other line, on the other end of that, I got a AN6 hose end, and that just adapts to this millimeter, which goes on the hard line itself. So that's really it. Everything is stock up until this point, which is really cool. But all this is going away because we're going to run flex fuel, and we'll need to put our flex fuel sensor, and then the LSA, the feed is actually on the other side, so we'll need a longer line. I'm going to have a content sensor. I want to do kind of a quick update here. I got the pump out, took it apart. Now I wanted to go ahead and explain a couple of these differences in these pumps. First, we have the replacement for the F-body pump from Racetronics. What's different about this is it actually has a venturi tube where it siphons from the bottom of the bucket, which typically is this hose right here, and then this goes into this siphoning valve that goes through the bottom of the tank here, right in that hole, and then that's kind of where your sock goes on at the bottom where your tank. This is your external sock. This typically also has an internal sock here. You can see where that internal sock goes onto that. Okay, so this is the sock that goes on this valve, which is on the external of the tank. This is the sock right here that goes actually on the pump that goes into the bucket. So this sock sits inside the bucket. And then again, this is the venturi tube. Now, what's different about these and why you have to modify this if you upgrade pumps that doesn't have the venturi tube, which siphons to the bottom of the pump, you have to modify the bucket because you won't be able to use that system, which is I'm really bummed about. So let's compare these real quick. We've got the Racetronic pump that basically is, I think it's the stock, which is 39 millimeters. Let me see here. Yep, 39 millimeters. That's what the stock F-body 255 pump is. So that one works right in there. That's a great pump. Unfortunately, it's only a 255 liter per hour, so I had to upgrade. Now I bought 2 pumps. I'm only going to use one. The first one I did, and the one I'm actually going to use, is the Hellcat. Now, this one, actually, the body of it is 39, so that's cool. So that actually fits that, but the bottom of this is larger. Now it's somewhere in the 46, and then this one is the Deechworks pump, which is 46, and this one is actually 50 on the bottom. So that's kind of the dimensions there as you kind of get through the different ones and how they're set up. Now I bought this Deechworks. It's about 230 bucks. The Hellcat pump is only about 125 or so. This is the one I'm gonna end up using because what I don't like about the Deechworks is they use some type of proprietary end right here. And I bought the Holley Hydramat because I got to put a hole in the bottom of the bucket. So my plan was to run the Hydramat, where that thing, from what I can tell, and some other guys have ran it, instead of this sock here, it acts as a filter, plus it wicks fuel, so you can run it all the way down, man. So that's what I want to use. Unfortunately, the Hydramat has 11 millimeter, which is kind of the stock fitting here. The Deechworks is proprietary, and I hate shit like this. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to build something, make sure it works with everything in the industry. So that's a pet peeve of mine. I don't know. I was so excited about this pump. Now, one thing in terms, there's a video out here actually by Dietz Works. This Hellcat actually outflows it until you get way up in boost. So mostly the guys who are running probably twin turbos and a lot of boost, I think if they just ran a single pump, they would go with this. For me, I think I'm fine. Even all the way up to 70 PSI, the Hellcat is outflowing it. And it's even on Dietz Works. You can Google Dietz Works, the DW400 versus the Hellcat, and you'll see that video there. And this actually outflows it until you get way up there, but I'm not actually going to have that much boost. So I went ahead, I got the wires all hooked up here, went ahead and spliced those. What I really like about these, I saw some where you don't solder in the tank, so I've got some really nice butt connectors that also had the heat shrink. These are see-through, so I love it because I can see where it's a very tight seal around the wires. So very cool. So I got that all done. And this is pretty much ready to go. So we'll go ahead and we'll see how this thing's gonna fit in there next. Very quick update. I was able to go ahead and slip the stock rubber foam sort of isolator. And I also put a slit in this and cut the bottom off here. This was per Racetronics instructions. We previously cut that out for the 255. So for this one, I kind of cut that off because this is so much wider. This diameter does slip through here, so as long as the pump will come down far enough, and then I can get the Hydramat external of the bottom of the bucket, which hopefully will go right there, then we should be all set. So let's go ahead and try that. Hey guys, let me catch you up. So what we did was, this is about how far it goes down in there. And what I did was, I just used a couple stainless tie wraps, secured that in, and then I bushioned that up a little bit with what I cut off the bottom of that rubber bushing originally, which was the bottom of it. So I used that so it wouldn't slide back up. So that's really it. So this now is going to fit through this. Now we did make provisions, quote unquote, or cut out the bucket right here. We popped out the valve, the existing valve right here. That's where the sock used to run, but we need it on this side. So I went ahead and cut that out, and that's really where it's going to go. Hey guys, real quick, I took out the intake regulator, which is a clip, and that's it right there, because we're going to have the boost reference. So I went ahead and popped that out there. So that's all set. Kind of looking at the top of the tank here, it's got a F for feed and an R for return. And I didn't realize it, but I think on these 4th gens, that looks like a 3/8 as well. So I thought it was a 5/16, but that's a 3/8. So we're going to go ahead. Luckily, I have an extra one, but I will have to order one for what I was going to use that piece for. So that's pretty much it. All right, guys, that is where the sock is going to go through, and it should be fine. It should be able to get up in there a little bit, hopefully. It's a little bit, I kind of wanted it a little bit lower, so I might have to adjust it down. But that's where the Hydramat is going to clip onto, and then the Hydramat will sit on the bottom of the tank. Right, guys, so this is it. We got it all back together. Got the feed tube and the connector back on, and that is pretty much the setup. Let's go ahead and stick it in the bucket. And there it is, guys, right in the bucket. So again, we got that's where the Holley Hydramat's gonna go. Still waiting for that to get here, probably in a few days, couple days. But we'll go ahead and put the sender back on. And that's it, guys. All right, guys, so this is kind of the finished product. Again, we basically cut a hole there. This is the Holley Hydramat, and got rid of the pressure release, or this is where the venturi tube went. So it's a little valve, equalizing valve there. Got rid of that, and opened up the bucket a little bit. And then this Hydramat is one of the few that actually had a fittings that fit the standard 11mm pumps. So we got the bucket. Then I removed the in-tank regulator, and you basically have to break it off of that metal piece there. I just sliced it and then broke the housing off, and then you're left with a little nipple in there, and the hose goes right on it. So a piece of 3/8 hose. Make sure you use anything that supports E85, not regular rubber hose. And then I've got a stainless zip tie, a couple there. And basically the idea is it's going to flow right on the Hydramat. So I think this is a pretty good design. We're going to go ahead and go with it. Then this is the 4th gen tank. It fits just like any other 3rd gen tank, except you've got quite a bit of advantages here. One of the advantages is it's plastic, and so what was cool is when I removed this pump and looked at the sock and the filter, it was perfectly clean after a couple years of running this car. So to me, that's a big thing. You don't get all that junk from a metal tank. So that's the first advantage. The second advantage is it has the EFI connectors instead of the 3rd gen hardlines, where, you know, if you choose to do the trap door, this honestly makes it so much more of an easier decision to do that, because you can just unclip the lines from these EFI fittings. So that's a big advantage as well, being able to just disconnect these instead of the 3rd gen hard lines being all the way through. So that's another main advantage. Obviously, one of the advantages is the bucket, and it siphons and fills it up, so when the gas tank gets low, you don't get that whole sloshing effect. It keeps the bucket pretty full. Obviously, that's not going to work anymore for me, and that's why I got the Hydramat. And for you 3rd gen guys, this might be an actual something to kind of look at, just getting a Hydramat on your 3rd gen fuel sender hanger in your pump, because this could make a big difference with that. So the 4th gen tank also, you could use the 4th gen lines like I did to the T-block if you're doing an LS swap, just like I explained under the car. So that's pretty cool. Just quite a few advantages here. This was a great upgrade for me. And another advantage is the filler neck is rubber, so you do have to trim that back a couple inches. But unlike the 3rd gen is metal all the way. It tends to crack in that seam. So that makes pulling the tank a lot easier, because the hose is flexible, obviously. So I think that's another advantage. So anyway, that's kind of the 4th gen overview there.
One other thing you'll need to do with the 4th gen tank when you swap that is get a different fuel level sender. And this is the Hellcat GFC31, and this one works great. It has a 0 to 90 ohm sweep, so your gauge will read correctly.
All right guys, there we go. So again, next step, so I got the pump all in, got the connectors all done. Next thing is 2 of these have to come out. One of these is the vent, the middle one, but the other 3/8 ones, this is 5/16 actually, it's smaller. But the other 2 are gonna come out, and then that's when the new lines are actually gonna come up. So we'll go ahead and take care of that now.
We got the trap door all sealed up with a gasket underneath of it, so super nice. Here's the 525 Hellcat pump. We ended up putting in the bucket. The Dietz Works filter with ANN fittings. And here's the system for the new LSA for PTFE. I redid all the lines, and they really turned out nice all the way to AN fittings up to the tank with the quick connect fuel lines. Went ahead and mounted the AEM regulator with the orb fittings to the AM fittings. So we adapted those, turned out really nice, and ran the interim hose to the rail, and then the rest of the PTF hoses down through the frame.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and try this out and see what kind of fuel pressure we've got. We've got the PTF 8-8 line for the feed, ran all the way. We've got a -6, which equates to a 3/8 return, running all the way back to the tank. And we've got our aeromotive regulator that's mounted on the fender now. That's going to be, and right now I've still got the LS3 on, so I went ahead and adapted my existing rail and the custom line that was already on there. So we'll go ahead and try it and see what kind of fuel pressure we got. And I've already cycled the key a few times. There's no leaks in the system, which is great. Got to dial this in a little bit here. Looks like I got a little too much. I want this to be about 58 with the LS3. And then when I